Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from the team Strengthscape. I'm happy to bring to you another webinar in the series of webinars Christian Learning Shorts that we have been conducting since April to help you make the best of the lockdown situation. I would like to run a few checklist items to help us get the best from the webinar. First, I request all the participants to remain on mute at all the times. Second, ask questions as soon as you have one. Third, please put your comments and questions on chat only, and the facilitators shall answer as soon as possible. So today, our discussion will revolve around storyboarding. Before we move over the session, here is a quick introduction to Strengthscape for those who are joining us for the first time. Strengthscape is an organizational transformation and development company headquartered in Bangalore, India. We help organizations create mechanisms for development, motivation, commitment, creativity that enables employees to give their best every day. To bring the best onto your table, we have partnered with Wiley for everything disk products, Central Test for psychometric assessments, Skillsoft for their off-the-shelf e-learning content. Our offerings include HR certifications, competency mapping, technical training, psychometric assessments, behavioral training, digital learning, OD consulting, team building, image consulting, and many more. Our facilitator for the day is Shraddha Dhar. Shraddha leads the delivery and operations team and is also the master facilitator for instructional design certification. And then it's me, Nidhi. I'm business analyst at Strengthscape and would be co-facilitating with Shraddha and will respond to your questions on chat. So with this, let me hand over this to Shraddha.
Great. Thank you so much, Nidhi, and very good evening, everyone. Welcome to this last webinar in the Learning Short series for instructional design that is on storyboarding. So we're going to spend the next 45 minutes doing a refresher for those who've done instructional design certification with us, and for those who are joining us for the first time. I hope that there will be some value add for you for the next 45 minutes. Because we are all shifting now to e-learning, some of you might start the development of e-learning in your respective organizations. I hope you are able to take away some tips that you can start applying right away. So with that, let me tell you what is the plan. The plan is to talk about the levels and principles of e-learning, because this is something that is applied in storyboarding. So we need to keep these in mind. So we're going to start with that and then move on to looking at some templates and what are the components of that a storyboard should have. Explore the steps of writing a storyboard. What are the steps? What is the process do you take? And we'll end with some tips that you can start applying right away. Now, before we begin with storyboarding for e-learning, let me just set the context that when if you try to Google storyboarding and learn more about it, you would see that you would see images and pictures of storyboard where there is a lot of graphical representation. There are sketches. Right now, storyboarding is something that is used by by the film industry, the movie industry, to sort of create out the entire action sequence in movie, the flow. And it is also used by animation. All the professionals who make animations, even they make storyboards. So the way they write storyboards is slightly different, although the entire principle, the underlying principle, remains the same. It looks and it is slightly different from how a storyboard is written for e-learning development. So just be cautious if you're trying to Google. Use discretion of exactly what article you're reading, and does it make relevance to you or not. So differentiate that and then refer to the source. Now, having said that, just to define what is a storyboard. It's essentially a detailed roadmap. Right now, when you say a roadmap, it has representation in graphical and textual format, word format, where you essentially communicate to the e-learning developer that this is how you would need to create the e-learning module. And it also communicates to the person, whoever has come to you with the requirement, that this is how the e-learning module will look. So it serves dual purpose. It is useful for the e-learning developer to understand that, okay, this is the flow, these are the graphic that needs to go in, this is slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and this is how I need to develop it. And the second purpose is for your end customer to say that this is how the flow is before it goes to development. If the client can validate it, then you save a lot of time during the development phase. So a storyboard has a lot of value in itself. Right now, that brings us to the question of, why do we need to write a storyboard? What is the importance of a storyboard? I want to gather some thoughts here from all of you, so I request all of you to put your thoughts on the chat box. All right, I see some there. Charu says it helps in defining the structure. Absolutely. To visualize ideas, create a flow. Rasya, that's right. Provides clarity. Absolutely. Yes. Okay, great. So I see, I think it makes learning easy. There's focus. Absolutely right. So let's talk about some of the points that you've already mentioned, and additionally, so your storyboard becomes a central document, right, for your e-learning development. It is, as I said, serves dual purpose, and it is the document that basically sets the path for everyone, all the stakeholders involved in that, or all the team members involved in that project, right, that e-learning project. It provides a clear and detailed explanation to the e-learning developer and to your subject matter expert, whoever's reading the storyboard, of what content has gone in, how the content flow is, provides clarity, as one of you mentioned, right? It makes the development quick and easy. Now, if you really start, just imagine the process of quickly gathering thoughts and ideas on a simple Word document, and then just giving the document to e-learning developer to say that, hey, this is the content. I want you to create e-learning module out of this. Now, maybe the e-learning developer will be able to make some sense out of the content and create something for you, but it will call for rework, right? Later it will call for rework. It'll increase the turnaround time, the entire development time, right? So hence, between the rough content draft to the and the e-learning module is the storyboard, which essentially structures out the entire flow of content in a way which makes development easy and quick. It helps to maintain consistency, especially if you're making multiple modules. You need to ensure that what you have said in module 1 should be consistent with what you're saying in module 10. And therefore, if you have the storyboard in place, it helps to maintain that consistency. You're able to, go back to certain versions and see if, if have you defined a certain word the same way in module 1 the way you're defining it in module 10, or I hope you do not put any contradictory information. So all of that can be done if you have a storyboard in place. You also need a storyboard to sort of chunk your information to bite size. Right now the trend is of bite size and micro modules. So if you're from your rough draft, which might be on a Word document or something that you're just pulling out of the internet, if you want to really see whether how can you chunk similar ideas, and then put it on a storyboard, and then sort of give it a sequence based on the learning objectives that you have written, it really helps you to visualize the flow of your storyboard, right? And the last and very important thing is it helps you to document all your steps, right? All your ideas. Now, it could be that in the first brainstorming session with your team, you've had some idea which could not go in module 1, but that doesn't mean that it can't go in the next module. So even if you have multiple versions of a storyboard, you can always refer to those versions and pick up ideas which did not work in the first module but can work in the next module as well. So that documentation is another important aspect of writing a storyboard. So giving that context now, just to summarize the importance. Here's a quote, and Martin says that the storyboard for me is the way to visualize the entire movie in advance, right? So you're able to visualize the entire e-learning module in advance, when you write a storyboard. So that's the importance of writing a storyboard. Now, as I said, that a storyboard has to be written based on the e-learning levels. Now, we follow a 4-level system. If you talk to multiple vendors of e-learning, you will know that they are following a 5-level system or 6-level system. It is good to, ask them how many levels of e-learning are they following, so that, you have a better conversation with them. It shouldn't be that what you consider to be a level 3 module, they are considering it as level 2 or level 4, right? So good to have a clarity on how many levels are they following, and the vendor or your internal team is following, and how each of the levels are defined. Now, coming to our levels, the first level for us is essentially the basic videos, which is essentially where there is no learner interaction, no learner navigation, and it's a simple video that you often watch on YouTube as well, right? With level 2 onwards, the interactivity sort of increases, where in level 2 you will give some simple navigation, you will give some quiz, basic very simple quiz. From level 3 onwards, the way the content is represented changes, because you can make kind of flow charts, and the learner can navigate anywhere through the flow chart. So I can go to step 3 of the flow chart as a learner to begin with, and some other learner can start with step 2. So basically you're leaving the learner to interact with the module, right? And level 4 is essentially the gamified modules, where you say game based learning, where you include game based elements into your storyboard as well, right, in the level. So of course, with each of the levels, the complexity of the storyboard changes. So one needs to first define for which level they are writing a storyboard, and then get into the actual storyboard writing, right? Let's delve little deeper. Before that, I see a few chats here. Okay. All right, so we will show some samples. Radha, I see you've sent a private chat. I think that's by mistake, but that's okay. We will show some samples. Not of these levels though, because I mean the time is very less. So the 45 minutes is just to essentially give you a snapshot of storyboarding, but you can always connect with us to know more. Okay, so moving on, when we look at the 4 levels, we essentially look at it from these 5 parameters, right? So when you look at, animation, animation in a level 1 e-learning video is very simple, right? It could just be like in a PowerPoint, you insert an image and you sort of give some custom animation to it. The image comes from the left side of the screen and the text comes from the right side of the screen. So the animation is very simple. Now, if you okay, yeah, if you go to level 2 or 3, the animation becomes a little bit more complex. So you have screens that are concept based, so you have multiple boxes on the screen, and you can click on any of the boxes and it will open with a certain transition effect to another module, right? So and you can also have simulation based animations in the screen. You can have characters talking to each other. You can have characters moving around on the screen in the video. I'm sure some of you must have experienced a few e-learning modules where there are animated characters who are moving across in the room. There is some office scenario or a marketplace scenario, and they're moving around. So those kind of complex animation can be used in level 3 and 4, but in level 1 it's a simple animation, like just the way we use in PowerPoint. When it comes to navigation, it's about your learner navigating through the e-learning module. Um, the for a level 1, the navigation is linear. It's just one way, so you can just probably just click on next, next, and next, and then just go on. But when it comes to level 3 and 4, the learner can navigate anywhere. So for instance, there is a table of content that a learner can open in the e-learning module, and the entire table of content is given there, and the learner can click on any part of the table of content to essentially click on any of the modules and any of the screens and just go there and read about it. Right now, if you have gone till screen 7, screen 8, and you want to come back to screen 2 just to probably do a recap, or you missed out any point and you want to come back to something, you can also do that. That navigation within the module itself. So of course the navigation becomes again a little bit more sophisticated, if I can say, with level 3 and 4. You can also have you can do a course tour kind of a thing in level 3 and level 4 as well. You can do a course tour, you can do like a script. You have this option of a script right at the bottom of the screen. You can listen to the script for a particular screen, and you can come back and listen to another script for a previous screen that you might have missed. So you can, again, the learner has the freedom to navigate through the e-learning module. When it comes to content presentation, again, that differs from one level to another. So level 1 content presentation is very similar to how you would put it in a PowerPoint, right? Like just 6 bullets, not too much of text, keywords, put graphics, and try to keep, if you're keeping graphics on the left and text on the right, then try to maintain that for the rest of the module, etc. So the content presentation is fairly simple and standard. But when it comes to higher levels in the e-learning, the content presentation can involve multiple things. Like you can have scenario-based contents, like you can have caselets and scenarios. You can have characters enacting that scenario. You can have dialogues exchange between those two characters, and then probably which ends with a summary slide to say what really happened, or just watching the scenario, and then there is a concept shown that, okay, what really you saw in that scenario is essentially this concept that they are trying to explain. So you can work around and play around and be more creative with your content presentation when it comes to level 3 and 4. But in level 1 and 2, it's fairly simple and standard way of presenting your content. As I was saying, a flow chart, which is also called branching in e-learning, that is also used in level 3. It's essentially like you have a major concept, and a major concept can have 2-3 sub concepts within it, right? For example, you have communication skills as a major concept. Within communication skills, for basic, you can have basic and advanced. Then within basic, you can have vocabulary, grammar, comprehension. Within advanced, you can have non-verbal communication, rapport building, using linguistic tools, etc. So you sort of create like a tree, a flow chart, and you can present that right in the beginning to say, this is your course tool, this is what you're going to learn in the next couple of modules, and the learner can click on any one of the boxes and just navigate through that. So I don't want to go through basic, I want to go to advanced, I can just click on advanced and start learning that. Whereas some other learner can click on basic and start with the basic, right? So with level 3, content presentation becomes I wouldn't say complex, but you can do much more with your content presentation. When it comes to description, in the levels of e-learning, uh, when it is level 1, it's essentially just text and image, right? That's how the description goes. But when it comes to level 3 and 4, you have buttons, tabs, which is clickable. You can click on it. Of course, apart from text and images, you can add these different elements. You can add clickable buttons or tabs. You can add hyperlinks and PDF links. So if you want people to just click on a link from that e-learning module and open a PDF document to read something and then come back to the e-learning module, you can do that as well in level 3. You can insert a hyperlink. You can also include tables and charts, the way you can give a reference to an Excel sheet, and where there is some chart or some table that has been defined, some data points that have been given. You can also give a reference to that in level 3. So the content description also becomes much more advanced when it comes to the increasing levels of e-learning. Lastly is the audio part of it. So now there are two kinds of audio in e-learning. In fact, um, if I were to put it, I would say there are three types. So One is the simple music where where you watch a video and there is no audio in the background, there's no one talking, there's only music that is playing, and you have the content on the screen. Then you have one more where there is audio, but it is essentially very robotic in nature. It is text to speech. What is taking it is taking the system's voice, and that's the audio that is getting generated. And then you have very engaging human voice recordings, which is essentially someone recording their voice and the entire audio script, and then that audio file is plugged into the e-learning module. Engagement wise, any day voice recording is much better, and therefore when it comes to level 3 and 4, it is suggested that the human voice recording audio is used. In level 1 and 2, you can do with text to speech audio and the robotic voiceover. Again, it's an ask because from a project perspective, there is an additional cost attached to voice recordings, and therefore you may choose to select a voice recording or a human voice recording or a text to speech. Text to speech, it's just a simple matter of inserting the text in the platform, and then the rapid authoring tool which is used to develop these modules, it picks up that, and it creates the audio. But if you want someone to record, of course from a project perspective there's additional cost to it, so you can always take a call based on the budget, right? So those are the different parameters and different levels of e-learning. Let me now talk about the 6 key e-learning principles, right? We need to keep these principles in mind, so that we apply this when we are writing the storyboard. So the first foremost principle is the multimedia principle, where we say that adding graphics to words can improve learning. So if you just have words on the screen with no relevant graphics, supporting graphics, it can make the learning a little bit dull for the learner, right? So try and add graphics, and the graphics have to be relevant. It should make sense of why it is there. It should tie to the content together. And also the way you would do it in your PowerPoint presentation, you would want to beautify your PowerPoint presentation with relevant graphics. You can do that with e-learning module as well. So it is important that there is graphics added to words. That's the multimedia principle. The contiguity principle is that placing text near graphics improves learning. So say suppose you have a diagram, right, and you have different parts of the diagram labeled. Now if the text is somewhere else on the screen and the graphic is somewhere else on the screen, so the graphic is somewhere on the left hand side and the text is somewhere on the right hand side, you might be meeting the multimedia principle, but you're not meeting the contiguity principle, because I don't know which part of that image is called what. So I don't have the right label at the right place. So try and keep, especially when it comes to diagrams and labels, where you're trying to explain different parts, especially in technical training, when you have technical modules, you have different parts of a software, machines that you want to explain through e-learning modules. That's where you need to keep this contiguity principle really in mind, to say that your text should be closer to the graphics, which will of course improve learning for the learner. Modality, so along with text and graphic, you need to also have some audio explanation, that is explaining what is going on in the screen and what is being represented on the screen. Redundancy principle says that so it's good to have modality principle, it's good to add audio, but don't have the same audio what you see on the screen. Just the way in a PowerPoint presentation we say don't read from the slides, right? So we essentially say that it's because it hurts, right? I'm also reading at my pace, and I'm also listening to the pace that in which you are talking, and at that there's a conflict, right? And that happens in an e-learning module as well. So your learner would be reading at a certain pace the same text that you have on the screen, and you're also listening to audio as well of the same words on the screen, and that can lead to conflict of pace in which both the audio as well as your reading is happening as a learner. So try to only keep the keywords and give the audio a little bit more detailed and descriptive, so that there is no conflict of pace and it doesn't hurt learning. That's the redundancy principle. Coherence principle is about, it's good to have words, it's good to have graphics, it's good to have audio, but do not have unjustified visuals, text and sounds, right? Or graphics, text and sound or audio, because if it's unjustified, it makes no sense. It makes it just confuses the learner even more of why that graphic is there. Or sometimes even that's why we suggest that robotic voiceover can be disengaging, because sometimes some of the robotic voiceovers you will hear, they're a little funny, right? Because they're speaking in a monotone, there is no pause, and that can also be a distractor, right? So that's the coherent principle. And the last one is personalization, where we say that use conversational tone, as if someone is talking to you, right? So the audio that is playing in the e-learning module should be conversational, should be personalized, in order to make it more engaging for the learners, right? So quickly, a quick recap. So you have the 6 key principles that you must keep in mind: the multimedia principle, the contiguity principle, modality principle, redundancy principle, coherence principle, and the personalization principle. I'll just pause to see, I do see some chats coming up. Um, okay, there is a question from Lean. Graphics with audio, you mean video? Okay, yeah. So graphics with audio, lead means that you have a screen where so even right now there is a smart art that you can see on the screen, right? So even that can be considered as a graphic. So you have this graphic, and then you have you can hear my voice explaining that graphic. So that is also what graphics with audio means. It need not always be a video. Yes, Ilya, if I'm pronouncing your name right, that's correct. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain. Thank you so much. Okay, so quickly let's move on because we don't have much time and I have a lot to talk about. So let's quickly compare storyboard templates. So we can create storyboard templates in Word as well as PowerPoint. Okay, Word is most frequently used because it's easier. PowerPoint because you have the basically a PowerPoint template would look very similar to your PowerPoint presentations that you create for any other work. You would have your graphics and the text on the screen of what you want the learner to see. The audio text or the script is in the footer, it's in the notes, slide notes, right? And so the e-learning developer will pick it up from there and develop it. Now, a PowerPoint template is suggested only when, if it's a level 1 or max to max level 2 kind of e-learning modules, it's easy. And that's also a trend right now with this pandemic, that a lot of classroom training content is getting converted to e-learning module, right? So you may have like a 40-hour training, induction training that is there, or you may have a 20-hour training and you have slide sets for it. If you want to convert those slide sets to e-learning module, there is an option of converting PowerPoint to e-learning in the rapid authoring tools. So you can simply convert it and it will make a level 1 video for you, and that makes development much more easier, and having a PowerPoint template then in that case becomes easier. But if you have a level 3 and level 4 e-learning video, you can't just transport a PowerPoint to e-learning. You then have to then sit and create a proper storyboard, and it is suggested that you use the Word template for it, because you're able to visualize the audio screen and the audio, the on-screen text, and the graphic notes all in one screen. I have some examples of templates in the next screen. I'll show that to you. So it's easier for you to visualize these templates in a Word document. So if you're doing a level 3 and level 4 video, it is essentially useful to use a Word template. If it's level 1, you can do a PowerPoint template as well. In some cases, even Excel sheets are used. Essentially, if you see why an Excel sheet is used, because even in a Word document, we create a tabular format. We create a table, and then we have different parts. You can create a table with different cells in an Excel sheet as well, right? And you can convert that into a template. So again, it depends on how comfortable you are with that particular software application. So if you're okay with Excel sheet, and if you're okay to manage it, feel free to make your storyboard in an Excel sheet as well. But the most prevalent ones are Word and PowerPoint, right? So I'll just give a few seconds for you to read through the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, let's move on to just a sample storyboard template here for you to see. So you have, this is a Word document template. You can also create this on Excel sheet, as I said. So what you would have is the audio file narration, which is the audio script, what you want the learner to hear or listen to. Then you have the on-screen text, which is essentially the what you want the learners to see on the screen in terms of text and words, right? Then you have the visual instructions and developer notes. Here it is combined. I'll show you one more template that we use internally. We tend to separate the two out. So visual instructions is essentially the graphic notes, the kind of graphics. Now narration timing notes, what it says here is essentially, you will have on the screen, you will have say 3-4 bullet points, and you don't want all the bullet points to come together. You want one bullet point to come one at a time, right? So step by step. So when I'm talking about bullet one, the other 3 bullets shouldn't come. When I start talking about the second bullet, then the second bullet point should come. So sort of keeping the word and the text and your audio in sync with each other, that is also something that is written in your storyboard. So that's your narration timing notes. And any kind of visuals that you want to put on the screen, if you want to give your developer a sample of it, you can also give a snapshot or a screenshot of it, or a rough ppt screen that you want to just say that, okay, this is how it should look. You can just do it roughly on the PowerPoint and give it to your developer, just for them to get a visual reference of what are you trying to say, right? Now at times, your e-learning developer would also be someone who would develop and create the images as well, right? He or she would know how to use Photoshop, and develop images as per your requirements. So be as detailed as possible, and that's the thumb rule in storyboarding. You cannot miss out on minor details here. Being as minute in your detailing as possible is very, very important. And whatever detail you can provide to your e-learning developer, do that. So if you want to give sample images, you want to tell them the sample images should be of a certain color combination, it should be of a particular size, it should be of a different shape but look similar. All of those things you need to put in your visual instructions and in your storyboard, right? Over here in this template, you also have media file links. So if you have, especially if you have voice recordings and they need to plug in some audio, you can upload that on say OneDrive or on cloud, and you can give a link to that here, so that the e-learning developer can knows that, okay, for this particular file narration you have this file and this image, so they can refer to the link and take it from there. Okay, so this is one template. The other template, very similar. This is something that we use internally. What we have essentially is that we give the module name, we give the screen number. Screen number is very similar to slide number of a PowerPoint. So basically each screen of your e-learning module has to be defined. You need to break it down. So so you have the screen number, you have the screen title of what should come right on top as the header, which learning objective is it mapped to, and then you have the audio text, which is your script. You have the on-screen text, and then you have the graphic notes. If you see, the on-screen text is just the e-learning, the learning objectives here, and the audio text has little bit more talking points as if someone is explaining. So so you have to first, it's a best practice that you first write your audio script and then write your on-screen text, so that you just have to basically say that what from the audio script you want to put here in the on screen as keywords. And then how should the learning objectives come? Here is a sample image that is given, and you can tell your developer that so it's written here according to the, so the tabs should enter, so one tab at a time, it should enter according to the voiceover of the objective. So when I say define comprehension, the define comprehension tab should enter. When I say apply strategies, it should the tab for apply strategies for good comprehension should enter. So you essentially explain it. If you want the color combination to change, you need to inform your your developer. What you also give in development notes is essentially the template number. So it's a best practice in storyboarding and e-learning development to create templates, right? Now, when I say template, it is similar to PowerPoint layouts. If you go to the design tab in a PowerPoint, you have different designs that has been given to you by Microsoft, and then you right click on any slide, you will have an option of layouts. You can choose whether you want a title and a text box, or you want a comparison slide, or you want a blank slide. Those are your different layouts. So that's nothing but templates. You can pre-create those templates right in the beginning of development, especially if it's a long-term project and you have to create multiple modules. It's good to first start with a layout, and then the storyboarder will say here that, okay, refer to template 0010, which is template number 10, and screen number 3, which is the layout number 3. So the entire storyboard is made in that fashion so that the developer doesn't have to spend too much of time adjusting and formatting things on the screen. They just have to pick up from the storyboard and put it in the layout that they have. Now, the flip side of having a template is the fact that it, of course, curbs creativity, but you need to choose between turnaround time and meeting your project deadline and creativity. So if you want to be creative during the templatization stage where you're creating the templates, and then after that, don't try to be very creative, because then you will delay your project deadlines. If you're making 5-6 modules, it's okay to not have a template and just think on the go. But imagine if you were to create 25, 30, 35 modules, and you have just like a 1 year timeline, or a 8 months or 9 months timeline. Then you need to really create a template in the beginning and then start the development. So it makes life much more easier if you start with a template, right? So those are the templates. And just to summarize the components of a storyboard, you need to have a header and a title. You need to talk about which module number it is. Now, when I say module number, it could be a smaller course within a larger module. So as I said, it could be communications skills could be the module. Within that, vocabulary could be a course. So you have to give the module number or a name. Either ways. Screen number, you need to give the learning objective, which is map to. We cannot forget instructional design and learning objectives when we are storyboarding. So need to give learning objectives. Need to give the audio text, on-screen text, the graphic and media notes as detailed as possible, and the development notes, right? Okay, so I have a quick poll here for you. I know there's not much time left, but I will just quickly launch this poll. And while you answer the poll, I'll look at the chat and see what are some of the thoughts coming. Okay, thank you, Nidhi, for answering that. Ilya, thank you so much for responding to Radha's question. You're right that both the rapid authoring tools have the option of transporting and importing PowerPoint files. Mahua, which is the best rapid authoring tool? Again, both. So the most two popular ones are Articulate Storyline and Adobe Captivate. Again, both have their own pros and cons and better features. It depends on what your e-learning development requirement is and what would work for you. As far as I know, Adobe Captivate has better asset library. Their asset library has better options than Articulate Storyline. But again, if you do not need that much of asset library, you can go with the Articulate Storyline. Okay, let me now end the poll. And let's share the results. Okay, so what is that one big challenge and maximum of your set to decide what are the elements to add? And I hope that a part of it got covered and answered in the previous components when we spoke about it. And some of the challenges I see: defining the content flow and steps and structures. Okay. Great. So I think those are some of the common challenges that we all face when we are writing storyboard. Let me help you put some structure to your, storyboarding. So when we write a storyboard, typically this is the process to follow. It's essentially the process of creating any content, right? So you start with your terminal learning objective and enabling objective, which essentially also sets the stage of what should go and what should not go into your storyboard, what elements to add and what not to add, what will be the flow. Everything is decided by your learning objectives and the sequence in which your learning objectives are. And the next step is to research, generate ideas. You understand the content, chunk similar content together and sequence the content based on the learning objective sequence that you've created. See if you have missed out anything, there are gaps, try to research more and fill the gaps. So remember, all of these things are happening in a rough Word document, right? It's still not, you've still not used or put things in the e-learning, in the storyboard template. Once you have put in the rough content, you want to identify the parts of the content that requires graphics to support. Remember the multimedia principle and the contiguity principle. So you need to add graphics there. Refine and fine tune the content. See if you can shorten the words, etc. Add any assessments, especially if it is level 2, 3, and 4. You need to add quizzes internally in the content. So identify what will be the points at which you want to insert a quiz, and then you get into the storyboarding state. So what I'm trying to say is that you finish all your research, you do all of this in a text document, in a Word document, and then you start putting it in a storyboard document, right? So this is the best practice to do. It also, put your thought flow, very well in place. If you have been storyboarding for quite some time, you can also start putting your research material directly into the storyboard. But even as pros, we tend to make mistakes. So I would again suggest process one. You put all your rough document and content in one place and then start putting in the template, right? So that's the process. And let me close with some tips to write a storyboard. Let's just summarize. So one is that you need to research about your target audience. What will be appealing to them, especially millennials? Millennials like level 3 and level 4 related e-learning modules. So understand your audience and decide on the level of e-learning. Then remember to chunk content, remember to make it bite size, remember to sequence it logically before you even start storyboarding, because once you start storyboarding, then you essentially, you would lose your flow in between if you've not really seen the big picture right in the beginning. So try to do that first before you start putting it in the template. Use the personalization principle, keep the style conversational, because there is no instructor for the learner. The conversational tone really makes it engaging. You need to know about the asset library, which is available in the rapid authoring tool. Do that research, speak to your developer, because you will get a lot of inputs from there to say what characters can you use, what kind of quiz templates can you use in your storyboard, and that will make your development also much more easier. So know about the asset library. um, Use a storyboard template to save time, and an e-learning template as well, right? If you're using the templatization method I explained to you, then you have to mention about the template number and the layout number. How do you want the learner to navigate through the slides? Chalk it out right in the beginning, because that's something that you need to put into the storyboard as well. Try to focus on a single objective per screen. Do not try to explain too many things on the first on one screen. So keep asking yourself, is it becoming too much? It should not lead to overload of information. And if there is too much, then reduce the content and see where you can you split it into 2-3 screens and make it easier for your learner. You need to detail out your graphic description, as I was telling earlier. You need to be as detailed as possible with the media and the graphic information that you give. Do not miss out on the minute details. And give media mockups and this with description. So give samples and a rough PowerPoint or an image to make it easier for your developer to produce those images in graphics and Photoshop, because they have a visual reference to relate to. Write your audio text first and then your on-screen text, and then move on to the graphics. So basically, if you look at a template, move from right to left. Okay. Include a good mix of multimedia. So wherever you want to insert videos, voiceover, activities. If it's level 3, you can also insert, if there is a PDF document, especially for guidelines, etc., there could be PDF documents. Don't have to put everything in the e-learning module. You can just give a PowerPoint, you can just give a hyperlink to a PDF, insert it in the e-learning module itself, so that you can reduce the content per screen. Navigation should be easier, especially if it is responsive and it will be used on mobile phone. It definitely has to be easier, because it becomes difficult if the navigation is difficult and complex. It becomes difficult to use it from your mobile phone. Definitely get your storyboard reviewed by at least 2 people, because you've been writing it, your thought process, you need some fresh perspective. So do not forget to do that, and avoid using nice to know information. So sometimes nice to know information can hurt learning. So although it is nice to know, but it may not be the right thing to put in your storyboard. So avoid giving all of those information in the storyboard. Try to keep it as bite-sized, minimum content as possible, right? So those are some tips. And with that, let me see if you have any questions. It brings us to the end of the webinar. um, Right. Okay. So, Rubina, we can't share the PPT, but the recording will be shared with you. I'll request the team to share the recording link. And we just have about a minute. So let me just make a few announcements. We have a few webinars coming up. We do 2 webinars every month. So we are ending with learning shots, but the webinars stories don't get over. So enroll for and register for our webinars to learn more. And we have a webinar, a paid webinar though, on DNI in your DNA. So all you DNI enthusiasts out there, if you want to know more about DNI and you want to learn and get your basic concepts clarified, join us for this, the webinar. It's a series of 4 webinars starting from 11th of June. And again, I request the team to share the links with you. Just to summarize, this is what we have discussed. Starting 17th of April, we've been doing ID related webinars. So these are the 7 topics that we've discussed. We thought we should do a refresher on each of these. If you think that you want to know a bit more about instructional design and any concept that you want us to talk a little bit more in detail about, please feel free to put your thoughts and suggestions in the chat box or write to us, and we will take your suggestions and recommendations and see if we can introduce a few more webinars around those topics. And those are our contact details. Thank you so much for being patient and for coming into this session. I hope you had some valuable tips that you're taking with you. Do join us for the next webinar. I look forward to interacting with all of you. Thank you. Have a good evening. Take care and stay safe.